I normally like to do videos either outside in nature or in a more organized kind of space. But as I said in that my last sort of update on the fundraiser, the weather here has been a bit all over the shop, so I've had to film these videos in my place. So you're currently looking half at my kitchen and half at some of my climbing and outdoor gear, just because I haven't been able to really get out and film in nature or outside. So this video is going to be touching on the subject of mental health. No, there's no triggers in here. I don't need to put a trigger warning. There's nothing in here that I'm sharing that would be triggering, I don't believe. But this is just a video just sort of looking at mental health as a whole and talking a little more about I guess what it does to the body and how it works on certain systems, and trying to talk a little bit about my personal experience, and then also talk a little bit about some of the science behind mental health, especially anxiety and depression. So this is going to be a slightly longer video looking at those things. So this is a back-to-back video from that last one I did. I guess this one's in some ways a little more serious. I mean, that last update, it was fairly serious about where we're at and what we're doing and what the plan is and pulling everything together. So I'd say from a point of the fundraiser, that was an important update, an important message. But this next little bit, I wanted to take some time to talk about anxiety and depression and kind of take myself out of the picture a little bit and just talk about these things from a bit of a deeper level, I'd say, of knowledge, experience, things that I've gained insight to over the years, but pulling it away from my personal story and my personal attachment to it all. So this is going to be a slightly longer video, I think. So if you are watching it, thank you, and I hope that it's interesting enough to keep you for the whole video. I have again jotted down notes to kind of keep me on track, because there's a lot of ground I do want to cover. So, I've always liked to be very open about my mental health and mental illness. I'd like to think that I do advocate towards mental illness. Sometimes I kind of struggle to use that word advocate, because I feel like to advocate for something you need to have kind of a wider reach, and I think sometimes I don't quite feel like I don't feel like I'm reaching that many people, so I kind of struggle to say that I'm actually a mental health advocate as such. But when I look at it in general, my openness about my own journey, doing what I can, talking openly about it with people whenever it comes up, always, I'm happy to share my experiences. I do keep some stuff fairly close to my chest, and I don't share it all, but I'm always very happy to talk about mental health. Always happy to hear other people's experiences and have them share them with me. It's quite an amazing thing when people feel like they can really open up to you about those things, and just be there to hear what they have to say about their journeys and what they've experienced, and just being there to support them and learning from their experiences as well. I kind of feel like smaller things like that do suit me. I don't like being the center of attention. I kind of feel okay with these videos because by filming myself and then uploading something, it's kind of putting a barrier between me and the exact audience. You're not right here with me. So I feel a little more comfortable about being a little more open about things. I guess that's why I've always liked writing, because again it puts a bit of a barrier between me and my audience. As I said before, I do feel like anxiety and depression do really get overlooked when it comes to mental health conditions as quite minor ones compared to others. But you know, when you look at anxiety, especially you know when it's at the severe and panic type levels, it really does affect all the systems in the body: your nervous system, digestive system, immune system. Just to name a few. You know, it affects everything. That fight or flight response, it just puts your whole body into action. You know, it causes a lot of physical and mental systems. I think one of the things that people probably don't notice or realize quite as much is that when it does hit and cause the immune system to flare up, it can cause inflammation. So one of the it's a semi-common thing, but anxiety, lump in the throat, and you just feel like you can't swallow or that there's something stuck in your throat. So that's a cause of the immune system flaring up and actually causing muscles around the throat area to flare up. And that can also, cause muscle pain, the chronic fatigue, things like that. Then, of course, you've got the adrenaline pumping around your body, which causes the nervous system to just go chaotic. Then there's, of course, the attachment between, obviously, brain chemicals and gut, which can have some pretty major digestive issues and symptoms, which are never fun to deal with. And most of the time you've got all of these things going on at once. So yeah, that's kind of anxiety. So with anxiety, it's generally considered to be about 30% genetic, and then the rest environmental. Sort of what you've been surrounded by, what you've experienced, different psychological, environmental factors like those things. And all of that stuff is widely argued. No one really knows too much about mental health in general. So there's a lot of theories about what causes anxiety, what causes depression, what causes any other mental health illness or setback. But yeah, the rough estimate is that 30% of it can be genetics, and then the rest is psychological, environmental, or sometimes just completely psychological and environmental. There might but not be a genetic component there at all. At a severe level, and again, I feel like this is something that's kind of overlooked with anxiety and depression, at a severe level, long term, these things can have some very serious effects on the body, on your vital organs, on just everything, basically, because it's putting a huge amount of stress on all of your bodily systems, functions, everything. And when that goes on and on and on and on, it really does wear the body down. So I think, trying to live semi-healthy lifestyle when you're dealing with these things is important, because it is proven, again, slightly contested, but it is proven that long term these things can really play quite severe effects on the body. So yeah, that's kind of more about anxiety, and then that environmental, traumas, stresses, other triggers that you experience that add to that kind of initial 30% if you're someone who already is predisposed. Where with depression, you know, I'd say moderate to severe level of depression. Again, it causes, you know, very severe mental and physical symptoms. It's slightly different to anxiety. It doesn't put the body into the fight or flight response. A little bit personal for me. I find that the depression side of things just kind of shuts things down completely. And you just have no motivation. You got no interest, fatigued, that kind of thing. But it's still causing essentially your body to trigger brain chemicals and either increasing or also decreasing certain brain chemicals, and how they're kind of running through the body and how they would normally be running through the body. And that's kind of what causes that impact with both anxiety and depression. Although they have slightly different sides to them, it's that when things really get going, and then it starts to play with the brain chemicals, and either releasing certain ones too much or not releasing them enough, and kind of really meaning that whether you've been born with it or whether it's something that has come through those environmental triggers, traumas, stresses, that it is changing your brain. People with anxiety, depression, any other mental health type stuff, you know, your brain is slightly different to other people. Again, it's contested and argued exactly what causes these things and exactly what chemicals come into play and how it all works and the best treatments. You know, a lot of people will argue the antidepressant route, if you're going off the brain chemical kind of idea, that you need to take antidepressants or other medications to help level out the brain chemicals, and things like that. So there's a lot of different models and a lot of different views around what exactly the causes are and then what exactly the right treatments are. Personally, I think it differs for everyone. But yeah, there's a lot of different arguments out there around that. I know for myself that they've always been there for me, but it definitely took a major change in absolutely everything in my life changing all at once to fully trigger the really severe state that I found myself in and that I'm still kind of in today and slowly digging my way out of. So yeah, I do think that for me there might have been some predisposed, either genetic or you know, something from a very young age that was then fully triggered by a massive upheaval and change in pretty much everything in my life, and that's what caused things to get really, really out of control. But that's just my personal experience. I didn't want to talk too much about my own journey in this video. I wanted to talk more about anxiety and depression just on a whole. But I'm just going to add those little bits in because it's my, you know, because I've lived through these things, a lot of it is also sort of from my perspective. Although I try to stay fairly unbiased about things when it comes to how different people treat things, or how different people believe that these things work or what causes them, and what the best treatments are and things like that. And you know, I can say definitely from a personal experience that the combination of both depression and anxiety is just brutal on the body, and pretty much all aspects of life are affected by them. And you know, a massive thing for me has just been learning how to cope. Not even so much treating it, just learning how to cope, how to live with it, how to know when I'm pushing too far and needing to pull back, or when it's okay for me to push a little bit more, and just playing that game of, you know, tug of war a little bit with myself. And, you know, sometimes it really does feel like I'm literally walking on a knife blade, and things are so fragile that I have to be so conscious about, you know, work, life, recreation, balance of all things, and making sure that I'm keeping everything in a fairly decent, level playing field, and not letting anything get too out of hand, so that I'm not hitting that level of burnout and needing to pull back from things, or yeah, it's a very fine line. And I think a lot of what I do in life is trying to prove to myself what I can do, especially since that all happened in 2016. I think a lot of what I've done since then has been trying to prove to myself exactly what I can do and what I can achieve, despite those setbacks and despite those experiences. You know, for the most part, I also love what I do. You know, my work, recreationally, pretty much most aspects of my life, I love what I get to do. I'll be honest, you know, it's good. But then another huge part of it is that I'm also really trying to show myself what I can do and what I can achieve. And that kind of plays into the whole NZ trip a little bit, in that that's that next level of really trying to push myself, really trying to see and prove to myself what I can do, what I can achieve. You know, I'd say that 3 major things in the past few years for me has been getting my climbing guide qualifications, getting a job in the industry, and last winter doing the course down south, doing the mountaineering course. And then a 4th added in, you know, planning this whole expedition to New Zealand. For me, those 4 things have been 4 really, really major things within my life. But I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if I'd achieve them. You know, it's been a long time coming that I've been working towards those things, and then they all kind of rolled in together fairly quickly, and just fell into place. So they, you know, but I really wasn't sure, you know, when I first started to slowly work towards getting my climbing guide stuff, I wasn't sure if I'd get there with that. Then I wasn't really sure once I had all that stuff if I'd get a job in the industry, and then that happened. I wasn't really sure if I would be able to get down south because of finances, as well as COVID and other things, but then eventually that did happen. And then, you know, New Zealand, I didn't have any climbing partners to go with to start with, and now I've got 2 people that I'm going with, which is great. You know, I've got the whole thing planned. It's looking like it's all going ahead, and that it's all going to happen, and that that is going to be achieved, and that is going to get done. And so that'll be, once New Zealand is done for me, that will be 4 huge things in my life that I've achieved that I really wasn't sure if they were going to happen. So to be able to say that right now I've achieved 3 out of those 4, for me is quite astounding from where I've been at, even just 2 years ago. So yeah, if you've stuck through this video, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. I did end up talking a little more about myself than I would have liked. I apologise for that, but I hope that you got something out of this, regarding anxiety, depression, and just mental illness as a whole, and just how it can kind of impact life, and I guess the severity of the physical as well as the mental, and how it all kind of plays on the body, and that you can't separate the mental from the physical. You know, when you've got that stuff going on, it does cause those really, really full-on physical things, and then down the road, long term, it does have that potential to cause some really quite severe things on the body. So I think when looking at mental health, it has to be looked at a really holistic approach, because, you know, to purely look at the mental, it just doesn't work. You have to look at the physical, and then you have to also look at the long term and kind of keep those three things in check, to be able to sustain any form of, I guess, long-term ongoing wellness, which, you know, is a struggle for anyone with mental illness. And I think it's something that everyone's journeys are slightly different, so just, you know, everyone's going through things, and I think learning to just have compassion for people and just knowing that everyone's going through stuff that's below the surface, so just having compassion for people, and if people are willing to open up and share their stories with you, having that compassion and that ability to just listen to them, you know, they're probably not, no, I can't say that. They might be looking for advice, but, you know, just having that openness to just hear people out, hear about what they're dealing with, just being there to listen. If you are going through things, you know, being open to talk about it with people who might be going through something similar, or, you know, be interested in maybe learning a little bit about mental health and things like that. If you do have either, you know, professional or personal background experience in those things, you know, I think it's really important just to share those things and to be there for people, if they're willing to share them with you. You know, it's becoming less and less stigmatized, which I think is a fantastic thing on a whole. There's a lot of more research being put in towards these things and looking at different treatments and different ways of looking at them, and what causes and things like that, which I think is all fantastic. So I think from, you know, a personal standpoint as a, you know, mental health patient, and then also as a sort of, I guess, scientific standpoint, as someone who really likes to learn about research, you know, I think the next 5-10 years are going to be very interesting to see what we learn about mental illness and mental health, and just exactly what causes all these things. So yeah, again, thank you for listening. I did say this is going to be a longer video, so if you have managed to stick along all the way, thank you very much, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.